If you've been struggling with weight gain, sluggishness, or changing metabolism, I have a free gift for you that is going to be a game changer. I want to offer you my free, no excuses, light and easy lunch guide to boost midlife metabolism. Inside this ebook, you'll not only get tons of simple and doable meal planning how-tos and tips, you'll get my favorite, quick, ridiculously delicious recipes. And you'll also receive my exact 3-step formula to guide your food choices so you'll know exactly what to put on your plate. Boosting your energy and feeling lighter doesn't have to be hard, and I'm going to prove it to you with this free guide. You can get the instant download using the link below. It's only going to be available for a limited time, so be sure to grab it before it goes away. Welcome to Boss Body, the podcast where successful women learn how to lose weight and get healthy in a way they can live forever. If you're successful in so many areas of your life, but can't seem to give yourself the same care and compassion you show everyone else, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sarah Haas, women's weight loss and body love coach, and I'm here to help you create the light, joyful, energetic life you deserve. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Boss Body Podcast. This is Sarah Haas. I'm so honored that you're here with me today, and I am really excited for you to meet my special guest because Karen Shier is here. And Karen is a midlife transformation guide, a desire factor and law of attraction life coach, an energy master, and an author. And Karen is also a friend of mine, and believe me, she knows her stuff. We're going to be talking about the inner critic today. Some of you probably know exactly what that is. I know I do. Something I've been, I don't like to use the word battle, but it's definitely a challenge that I have been working with for a long part of my life. For those of you who don't know what the inner critic is, you're going to find out. But Karen works with women in releasing what no longer serves them so they can joyfully thrive in their second half of life. And that's what we all want, right? We want to get rid of those things, especially that nasty voice in our head who's telling us we can't do something or we shouldn't do something so that we can be free and have freedom to spread our wings and to do what we want and to just live the life that we're meant for and that we deserve. So Karen, I'm so happy to have you here today. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Karen, I mentioned that we're going to be talking about the inner critic, and I definitely want to dive into that in just a second. But I want people to get to know you a little bit. So can you tell me just a little bit about your background, your life history, how you came to be working with women in this midlife transformation and really just helping them open their minds and change their mindset and to realize the life that they're actually meant to live. Now, not everybody is special enough to be able to do that, and you are one of those people. So I'd love for you to tell me, how did that come about for you?
Oh, sure. How did that transpire? For sure. My background is, well, I actually spent 30 years or so in corporate America. And my last 15 years, I was a VP of human resources for a national staffing firm. And through that time, I was just this constant learner. I'm always learning new things. That's the way I'm wired. There was a teacher in me. I was always in like kind of a coaching role. But I didn't really know that's what it was at the time. Um, and but I always kind of just felt a little bit out of place. I was that person that everybody came to and told their deepest, darkest secrets to, and I was that person that was kind of the peacemaker and that trusted person that people would come to, and that kind of followed me through my whole life. And but I never really knew what I wanted to do. And so I ended up in human resources one time, when I was about 30, I would say. And my manager at that time said, "Oh, you'd be really good in HR." And I'm going, "Oh, okay, what's HR?" So anyway, I pursued that path basically based on what a couple of people had said to me. And started out fine, but then over time, I had these little pulls, these little inklings of, you know, this just isn't what you were meant to do. You're meant to do some more. And as life would have it, we all have our ups and downs and we go through different experiences and things. And I just knew I had this knowing inside of me that I really wanted to help women. And I had some experiences where I'm like, I want to help people navigate these things so that they don't go through some of the same things I did. And so it, as I got into my VP career, it just, you climb that ladder. And I think as a woman, we climb that ladder and then we get to the top and we're still just maybe not fulfilled inside. We're still like, what's that missing? What's missing from my life? And that's where I found myself. Um, I was in a compliance role and just got so tired of compliance. It's just it's a necessary thing, but it's just not something that fills you up, right? And so then I started my search. I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? What do I want to focus on? And found the coaching program that spoke to me and so forth, and just kind of went from there. And luckily I have my husband's so very supportive, and I was able to leave my career behind and jump into this role of building my own coaching business and supporting women and doing the things I want to do. So I was very lucky in that respect that I had that support, and he's a good
Yeah,
dude.
and that's awesome. And not just that you had the support, that you had that inner knowing and that you were able to really listen to that. Because I think a lot of us can relate to being in a job where it looks good on paper. You're
Mhm.
successful, you have a nice income, you're comfortable. It's not like you dread going to work every day. Well, some people do, but a lot of us had jobs where it was a good job. But
Mhm.
then you get to, a certain age, as some of us are, and you want joy, you want excitement, you're thinking, okay, I don't have time to waste. I'm midlife, so I'm somewhere in that halfway range, maybe a little bit
For
beyond,
sure.
whatever. But you're sort of looking at the rest. And a lot of us are taking stock and thinking, is this the job I really want to be in? Is this the relationship I really want to be in? Is this still the area that I want to live in? What are things that I haven't done that I always said that are on my bucket list that I'm going to do? And you want to do it now when you feel good, when you have energy and you feel vibrant, and doing those things only keep you younger. When you're doing
For
something that
sure.
lights you up, you're going to continue to have energy and vibrancy, and you don't want to be stuck in something that's sort of dragging you down, whether
Mhm.
that's relationship, job, or whatever. And I know personally you've gone through some transformations, as I have. You were a single mom and, had to deal with a lot of that stress in your life. And sometimes you don't have quite the choices that you would like because you're serving a role. But then as your kids
Mhm.
grow, you get a little bit more freedom. And so I think it's awesome that you were able to really listen to that voice. And now you're guiding other women to do the same. So I want to talk about the inner critic, because that's one of the things that you and I agree can really hold us back. And to me, the inner critic is just that voice in your head that's
Mhm.
constantly saying negative things to you. You're not good enough for this, or you should have done a better job, or you're not enough this, or you're too much that. Tell me about that. Tell me about, what is that inner critic?
That insidious little inner critic. Yes. So, I I like to give my inner critic an identity, and I refer to her as a she, right? So basically our inner critic is that mind chatter. It's ingrained in us. It's formed from um gosh, the past, from society, from what we heard as a child, from things, beliefs, and the thoughts that we thought as a child and we were exposed to, what our parents said, our teachers said, our whomever, those people of authority that we were around, what our siblings, the things that they said, damaging things that they may have said to us, or hurtful things that we internalize and become our, and over time, a thought we think over and over becomes a belief. So those things that we were exposed to growing up and as part of our experience becomes that mind chatter, that we hear, and we don't always really even recognize it's there. It's so normal to us, just like the things you just said. I kind of liken it to these little bubbles in your mind of the different thoughts just kind of bouncing up and down against each other. And it's just kind of becomes that negative mind chatter. Like you said, you're too this, you're too that. I'm so stupid. I'm so heavy. I'll never be skinny. I mean, whatever it is for you, that's what your inner critic is kind of whispering to you. And it's based on past experiences. Now, I do want to point out that the inner critic really does have an altruistic nature in that it's really designed to keep you safe. And it comes from our evolution in that, when we were in a situation where we're going to be eaten by a tiger, which most of us aren't now, it had a good role. It would tell us to run or to hide or to do whatever we needed to do to get out of that danger. But in our modern world, most of us aren't exposed to those kinds of dangers anymore. But evolution brought that little inner critic along. So it's just in that limbic reptilian part of our brain. It's just we're hardwired to do or to hear those certain kinds of things, or to internalize those thoughts. Um, so it's whispering things to us to keep us safe. But what we can do is we can rewire those neural pathways with the things that we want and with higher level thoughts. And so it takes some practice, and it takes a lot of work, but you can quiet down and soothe that inner critic. And when you soothe that inner critic, you're more open to your intuition, you're more open to your heart speak, and open to those things that you really want in your life.
And I think one of the things you said what that is really important to point out is that some of us don't even realize that's there. We're so used to it. And that was me for a really long time until I was introduced to that term inner critic. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay. I just thought that was me. I just thought that's my inner, that's me thinking. That's just my thought process. And when I
Right.
really started to separate myself from it, as this isn't me saying this, this is a combination of all these things I've taken on over the years, starting from when you're a kid. And like you said, authority figures or older siblings, or it could be cousins, it could be people that you have dated or been in, any kind of relationships with, teachers, bosses. And when they say something, you feel like, well, they know what they're talking about. They're older or they're wiser or they're in charge or whatever.
Mhm.
So what they're saying to me is true. And a lot of times it is absolutely not true. As you know, it's all over the
For
map.
sure.
There's all kinds of things people say. And as we go through life and we start absorbing all that, and then repeating it to ourselves over and over and over again, it creates those neural pathways. So that's sort of, you're living by that. You are living by the words of all these different people that may be said in a good way, maybe said in a bad way, or whatever. But once we can start separating ourselves, and I like how you said, well, you give your inner critic, you say she, her voice. So not me, not my voice, her voice. I think that's a
Mhm.
really important distinction, is that not to identify with that voice, to realize it's there and start paying attention, but not to think, oh, this is me and this is the truth. And then I
Right.
also like what you said about originally it's there for a purpose. The reason our brain works that way is to keep
Hmm.
us safe. And one of the things that has occurred to me in my inner critic work over the years is that I look at my inner critic as sort of a coach slash cheerleader. I always thought, well, this is me, and this is me motivating myself or keeping myself to a higher standard, pushing to be successful, to be liked, to be looked at in a positive light, whatever that is. And I had a fear of not listening to that inner critic. Like, well, if I don't do that, I'm not going to succeed. I'm not going to push myself. I'm just going to drop the ball and just become lazy or, never reach my goals or accomplish what I set out to. And so I think we hang on to that inner critic for good reasons, but you say our inner critic's actually keeping us stuck. Can you
Yes,
what
yes.
what do you mean by that? That it's keeping us stuck?
Well, let me preface it by this. So another way to think about our inner critic is it's just a wounded part of us. So it is a wounded part of our inner child. All right. Um, and if you think about it that way, and it's just a wounded part of us that's trying to get our attention. So let's say my 6-year-old part of me had some kind of a trauma at that time, and she's kind of I liken her to pulling on my pant leg and going, hey, listen to me, right? And so what you want to do is give that 6-year-old Karen an identity and get down to her level and let her know we're safe, it's okay, things are well, I've got you, you can come along, but you don't have a say in what we're doing. This is the direction we're going. But when we don't have the skills to learn how to quiet those thoughts and soothe the chatter and soothe that energy, it's all energy. If we don't know how to process that energy, we can become stuck, and it can keep us stuck. It can keep us from expanding, and it can keep us from growing, and keep us from, trying new things, for example. Or maybe we've been burned in relationships a number of times and we just say, yeah, forget it. I'm just not going to date again. That's where it keeps us stuck. Or that person, I'll never be as smart as them, so I'm not even going to try. That's the time when it's damaging. It keeps us stuck. Instead of challenging us, instead of motivating us to do better, to learn something new, to do more things, it keeps us stuck comfortably in our comfort zone. And one of the functions of the inner critic is to do just that. It wants to keep you inside of what your experience is, what it's used to, what it knows. So it does keep you stuck in that manner. It's when you can, I guess one distinction with the inner critic that's just a good thing to know is when you feel a thought and it doesn't feel good, you always know it's coming from your inner critic. So if you can just take that lesson, and when you have a thought that comes to mind, and if it just ask yourself, does this thought feel good? Is this the truth of who I am now? If it's not, you know it's coming from your inner critic. If it's a thought that comes to you that feels really good and fills you with excitement, that's coming from your intuition. That's coming from your inner wisdom. So when we learn to distinguish between those two and start following our inner wisdom, we're going to get out of that stuckness because we won't be mired in the things that we don't want to do or we don't want to think. We start to learn to quiet that chatter and follow our inner wisdom. And that's what's going to lead us to joy and happiness and to the things that we want to do.
I like that because I can instantly feel it in my body when you're
Mhm.
describing it. When you have a thought that doesn't make you feel good, I can immediately feel how that is in my body. It's a tightness, it's a
Yep.
pit of my stomach, it's like a closed up, and it's a worry. It's a look what happened last time. This is probably what's going to happen again. Or, it's that voice popping up. And like you
For
said,
sure.
it's there to sort of keep you safe because if you don't put yourself out there, you won't get hurt, right? If you don't go outside
Mhm.
your comfort zone, if you don't make yourself vulnerable, if you don't step up, you're not going to get shot down, right? If you don't
For
ask for that
sure.
raise, then you're not going to get told no. If you don't put the deposit on that house, then you won't be disappointed when you don't get it. If you don't reach, start dating again, you will never get your heart broken again. So it's keeping you
Sure.
safe and stuck. And I know how it feels when you have excitement, when you think about a thing you want to do and you get sort of giddy and have that lightness, and that ooh, that buzz. I love how you said that's your intuition. Because that's the
Mhm.
wisdom inside you that is saying, this is what you can have. This is what you should go for.
Right. This is the one that's leading you down the path. It knows what it knows what it wants for you, and it knows what's out there for you. So follow those thoughts and that excitement in that feeling space.
Yeah, and that's such a great way of distinguishing between the two. Because first of
Mhm.
all, just becoming aware that that negative chatter's in your head is a huge
Sure.
step. And then secondly, figuring out how to distinguish between what's my inner critic and what's my intuition. How do I know? Like, is my
Mhm.
intuition just saying, "Ooh, no, don't go for that. That's you're not going to get it, so don't put yourself out there." Because
Yeah.
sometimes we're confused. Which one is this? Is my intuition just saying, no, you better play it safe? You better, is my intuition just being logical? Can
Right.
be,
Right. For
that
sure.
can be really confusing. And so, and you said that our inner critic is really like a little kid pulling on our pants leg. And so
Mhm.
we do need to pay attention to that voice, but we don't need to listen to what it's saying for us to do.
Well, we need to we need to listen, and we kind of need to comfort that little part of us. It brings to us an awareness of maybe something we haven't thought about in a really long time. And when you have something that comes up that you haven't an incident, let's say, that you haven't thought about in a really long time, that's kind of that little pant leg pull of, hey, there's something here you need to heal. There's something here you need to pay attention to. And then it's about processing the energy of that, maybe through journaling or through some other energetic means or through a meditation, but processing that energy, acknowledging it's there, acknowledging it's a part of you, but then soothing that energy, soothing that inner child, whomever that may, or whatever age that may be. I had this funny story that popped in my head that the other a couple of weeks ago that I hadn't thought about for years, and so it happened to me when I was like in eighth grade, and I had this boyfriend that I was head over heels with, and just thought he was the bee's knees, and we were out on we had this like oak tree that was out on the not playground but like lunch area, and the kids would congregate out there. Well, I remember one time, and I was in pretty darn good shape. I was thin. You know how when you sit down and your legs flatten out and they look heavier than they are, right? So I sat down, and this boy, who I just thought was the best, looks at me and says, "Oh my God, your legs are so fat." And I was humiliated and angry, but instead I just laughed it off and didn't deal with the hurt. And what I should have done was said,
F
at
you.
least, yeah, well, of you, yeah. Or at least say, hey, that hurt, and don't say that to me, kind of thing, or whatever. I should have reacted in that way, and I didn't, because I was a good girl. And didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So what I did is I internalized that, but I realized at that time how much that hurt me through the years, because it attacked my body image. It made me feel unattractive. It made me feel like I had to work harder to please him more, which was a really unhealthy way to react, right? Had I understood at that time, which most of us as kids aren't going to understand, that that was something I internalized, it followed me through life. And it wasn't until it popped up a few weeks ago, I'm like, gosh, I completely forgot about that. But it's still, now I can look back, it doesn't hurt. It's just a good story, right? But those are the kind of things I'm that we internalize that we don't often realize that we internalize. It's
Oh, a
it's
hundred
those
percent.
it's like
Yes.
the little girl that runs out in the kitchen. She's a 4-year-old girl. She runs out in the kitchen. She wants to show her mom a picture she just made. Well, mom's in the middle of making dinner. And so she kind of brushes her off. In that moment with that 4-year-old brain, we don't know how to logic our way through it at that age. So our natural reaction is, I'm not important. She doesn't love me. Those kinds of things imprint. And we imprint those things, and it becomes part of our belief system when we're little, um, just because we don't have the capacity to be able to logic through those things when we're little. Now, looking back, you can say, well, she was busy. She was, mom loved me, but I could only see this. So it's kind of taking those things and those bits and pieces in time and kind of looking at them in a different light now. And you can kind of process that through and go, oh, that's not really what happened.
Yeah,
But
because when you're a teenager and you have a crush, of course you're not going to have the tools to deal with that. You're just going to
Mhm,
look down and go, yeah, my leg really does look fat. I guess I'm fat. I guess
mhm,
I'm unattractive. I guess I'm not going to get the attention or the boys or whatever it is because I'm not good enough. And then when you
for sure.
can look back on those things as an adult and really break it down and go, okay, well, that wasn't true. Or, you, like you said, with the child and the mother, once we have the tools, not just the tools, but also the distance from this situation so that we can look at it from the outside instead of being in it in that moment,
For
because
sure.
we all know how that feels. You're just injured and you just want to go inside, you just want to hide, and then when you do, you just beat yourself up. You don't think, oh, well, that was such a rude thing to say. And who does he think he is? And, why does he get to say what's attractive,
Mhm,
what's not attractive? Why is he even allowed to comment on how I look? Why does he even feel he has the right to say these things? So now as an
for sure.
adult, we can see that that was a really not just rude and insensitive, but inappropriate and unacceptable.
For
So,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So I like how you say, when these little things pop up, it's calling your attention to something that wounded you, that you haven't been able to work through yet. And
Right.
it's going to keep calling your attention to it and it can take some time. You and I both know it can take some time to work through this stuff. It's a lifetime of work.
It
It's never
is.
ending. But what you said is, journal about it. Somehow let that energy process through. And I think that's really important because I'm someone who's really bad about sort of acknowledging it and going, yep, that's there. Okay. Well, I'm really busy right now, so I'm going to get back to that later. And I know a lot of us do that. And with the women I work with, a lot of them eat to stuff down those
Yes.
emotions because it comes up and it's uncomfortable. And that's a completely natural response. A lot of people become workaholics. Work is
Mhm,
their comfort zone. Work is
mhm,
what keeps them from facing any of that or having to deal with those uncomfortable emotions because that's where they thrive. That's what they're good at. And it feels
mhm.
good to be in a place where you are shining, where you feel successful. And it's really tough to go back to those difficult things. So I think that's why it is amazing that this is the work that you've been led to do so that you
Mhm.
can guide people, because sometimes it just gets so jumbled up. Like even with us discussing it and sort of pointing things out, it can lead to some really big light bulb moments. But I also know that having a guide or a coach or a teacher of some sort is absolutely paramount if you really do want to completely work through these things. Well, I won't say completely because it's never going to be completely, but there's so much that we can't see. And I hear this a lot when because I do inner child and shadow belief and inner critic work with my clients. And they say, but it is true. You know, the thought
Mhm.
like you had with when your leg is squished down and you thought, well, my leg is fat. I don't look good. I need to hide this for the rest of my life. But it can be really hard to realize what's true and what's not true because we're so used to accepting that inner
Mhm.
critic as truth, and having someone else just outside the situation who's not doesn't have an emotional bond to it to point out one thing and that it just can immediately release and
Mhm.
flow. It can make all the difference. So, Karen, I want to thank you for the work that you do. And I want to mention that I am going to put a link in the show notes to Karen's. She has a free e guide called Three Ways to Soothe Your Inner Critic so you can hear your inner wisdom, because that's what we've been talking about today. You can get it at KarenShierCoaching.com, but I'm also going to put a link in the show notes so that anybody who's listening can get that and start getting some first steps to working on that inner critic. And Karen, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It's been just wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do as well. Because I think collectively, we're just going to shine a light and help as many people as we can.
Absolutely. Yes, that's our goal, both of us, to just help
Sure.
women up level and be their best self and feel amazing, and to make the second half of their life just the most absolute joyful, confident, amazing, energetic, vibrant half
For
yet.
sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you all for listening. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, I will see you then. Thank you so much for being here. I'm honored that you've chosen to spend your time with me and allowed me to be part of your journey. If you like what you're hearing, remember to subscribe to the podcast and share it with anyone you think would benefit. I'll see you soon.